In this podcast episode, journalist Steve Sweeney shares his first-hand account of surviving an assassination attempt by an Israeli missile while reporting in southern Lebanon. The discussion covers the ongoing Israeli military actions in Lebanon, the targeting of civilian and religious sites, the broader geopolitical context involving the United States and Britain, media censorship and press freedom issues, and Sweeney's unique position reporting for Russian state media amid conflict zones. Steve Sweeney recounts how he and his cameraman narrowly escaped death after an Israeli-owned, American-made F-16 fighter jet fired a GBU-38 missile at them on a bridge in southern Lebanon. They were documenting Israel's campaign to bomb every bridge in the area, aiming to isolate southern Lebanon by targeting crucial infrastructure connecting it to the rest of the country. Despite assurances from the Lebanese army that it was safe to film, the missile struck near their location. Critical factors, such as the missile passing through a previously destroyed hole in the bridge, saved their lives. Sweeney emphasizes this was a deliberate assassination attempt designed to silence journalists chronicling Israel's actions, not collateral damage. He also highlights the intense danger faced by medical workers, with hospitals and ambulances frequently targeted by Israeli forces, contravening international law. Sweeney exposes the deliberate bombing of iconic religious sites in southern Lebanon, including the Tomb of St. Peter and numerous churches and mosques. He points out that these attacks were not accidents, but purposeful efforts to destroy Christian and Muslim holy places, with one Israeli Defense Force member even filmed desecrating a statue at a Catholic church. He contrasts Israel's destruction with Hezbollah's role in protecting Christian sites and communities, rejecting accusations that Hezbollah targets ambulances or religious buildings. The destruction of such sites is framed within Israel's broader campaign of ethnic cleansing and forced displacement of over 1 million Lebanese, including Christians, under the guise of security and control. The conversation situates Israel's military actions within the framework of the Greater Israel Project, an ongoing land grab that aims to push Lebanese communities out to create a buffer zone along the border. Sweeney discusses how Israel openly seeks to annex territory claimed biblically, legitimizing these actions through religious narratives supported by settler activists and government officials. He recounts episodes like settlers planting trees in Lebanese border towns as symbolic acts of claiming land. The Israeli government's statements about creating security zones and attempts to redraw borders demonstrate that this expansionism is part of a longer historical pattern, sanctioned and supported by Western political and military powers. Sweeney denounces the complicity of the United States and the United Kingdom in enabling Israel's campaign through arms sales, equipment, and political backing. He details how American and British-made weapons are used in attacks across Lebanon, effectively making these governments co-conspirators in the destruction and targeting of civilians and journalists. The episode discusses the legacy of Western colonialism and interventionism in the Middle East, tying current conflicts back to historic actions like the Balfour Declaration and the arbitrary partitioning of lands post-World War I. Sweeney describes how Britain and the U.S. utilize Israel as a proxy to control regional resources and geopolitical influence at the expense of the Lebanese and Palestinian people. Steve Sweeney talks candidly about the extreme dangers journalists face in the region and globally when attempting truthful reporting that challenges dominant narratives. He shares his experience being detained and interrogated by British counter-terror police on suspicion linked to his work with Russian state media, RT. Despite holding a British passport and living away from the UK, he criticizes the British government for tacitly siding with Israel and failing to protect or support its journalists under threat. Sweeney contrasts the lack of freedom in Western media, where dissenting voices are silenced or marginalized, with the relative press freedom he enjoys at RT. He argues that Western coverage of conflicts like Ukraine, Lebanon, and Gaza is heavily censored and shaped to promote government agendas, resulting in a manufactured consent and widespread misinformation. Sweeney outlines his path from working in British print media to becoming an international correspondent for Russian state television. His decision to join RT followed his disillusionment with restrictions on journalistic independence in the West, particularly during the Ukraine war when he was nearly kidnapped by Ukrainian forces for refusing to toe their narrative. He describes his years reporting on conflicts in Donbass, Lebanon, and Yemen, emphasizing the humanitarian crises and war crimes he has witnessed. He also remarks on the cultural vibrancy and resilience of countries like Lebanon and Russia, debunking Western stereotypes about authoritarianism and repression in Russia compared to media control in Western countries. The episode touches on the symbolic and economic importance of olive groves in Lebanon, some thousands of years old, which Israel has systematically destroyed using bulldozers and chemical agents. These attacks represent another form of cultural erasure and displacement aimed at disconnecting people from their land. Sweeney stresses that attacks on agriculture are not incidental, but integral to the broader policy of dispossession and territorial consolidation. Sweeney discusses Israel's illegal military presence inside Lebanese sovereign territory, highlighting the absence of an officially recognized border between Israel and Lebanon. Despite UN Security Council Resolution 1701, Israeli forces maintain and expand military bases inside Lebanon, ignoring Lebanese government protests and international law. These violations further fuel instability and violence in the region. Sweeney criticizes major Western media outlets for their biased portrayal of southern Lebanon as Hezbollah-controlled strongholds, language designed to legitimize the Israeli bombing campaigns. He points out that these areas are home to ordinary people living normal lives, and that the media reduces complex social realities to simplistic, demonizing terms. He calls this media behavior a form of propaganda that helps justify war crimes and suppress international outcry. The discussion highlights how British authorities have outlawed and criminalized groups and individuals protesting in support of Palestinian rights, equating activism with terrorism. Sweeney cites cases where elderly protesters were arrested under anti-terror laws for peaceful demonstrations, illustrating a broader suppression of dissent in the UK. He connects this crackdown to Britain's historical and ongoing political commitment to Israel's interests. Despite the attempt on his life, Sweeney affirms his unwavering dedication to living and reporting in Lebanon. He describes Lebanon as his home and speaks of his responsibility to amplify the voices of Lebanese people enduring occupation, bombardment, and displacement. He stresses that he and his colleagues will not be silenced or driven away by intimidation and violence, and that they intend to continue frontline reporting regardless of the risks.